I think it's easy to go the Sue Enquist route, Jami, and say like the only thing that you should ask is McDonald's or Taco Bell, right? Like that's like her famous quote in line. And if I were to err on one way or the other, I would definitely err on the Sue Enquist, McDonald's or Taco Bell. But at the end of the day, like every single girl is different. And so when I think about even myself, I love talking about the game. Like I love talking about the moments in the game, but that's how my mind works. Like I'm analytical. I like calling the games now. Like I like watching the Astros with my dad talking about the game. Like I wanted to learn and think about moments that were in the game that could have been better or different. And so maybe that's kind of where it all started, is talking about the game itself, James, instead of my individual performance. Like we would eventually get there. But I think talking about our team and the game and the feel and the moments were things that taught me about the game. And then we got into my individual performance, because it's not just about me. It's not one person, right? So that's where my head goes with it, and just understanding what your daughter wants to talk about.
Welcome to the Car Ride Home podcast. I'm joined by Amanda Scarborough. Amanda is currently a softball analyst on the ESPN network. She's one of the voices of the Women's College World Series. She is the founder of Pitching Angels. She's helped thousands of pitchers and parents and coaches through her virtual communities and events. She is a co-founder of the Package Deals, formerly a two-time All-American at Texas A&M, Big 12 player and pitcher of the year. And I think most importantly, she's one of my best friends, former teammates, and roommates. Amanda, welcome to the Car Ride Home.
Yeah, I like the car ride home with you. It reminds me of being back in college with you after our games, and literally we'd have the car ride home together.
We might get into that a little bit, and it's, tell all the great things about me as a roommate. But I want to set the stage first, since we are in the car, we're on a car ride home. What kind of music are we listening to? And I want you to give me two answers. What is 12-year-old Amanda listening to on her car ride home? And what is Amanda today listening to?
12-year-old Amanda was listening to Britney Spears, NSYNC, and Backstreet Boys, 100%, maybe some Usher mixed in there. And then today's Amanda is trying to watch a game on her phone in the car, or listening to a podcast. Like I find myself not, or an audiobook. I find myself not listening to as much music anymore, just mainly when I'm like working. But yeah.
Favorite podcast besides the car ride home?
My First Million I've been into lately. It's a business podcast. And then I'll listen to our 7 Innings podcast or ESPN podcast too, just to hear how it sounds. Yeah, kind of ones about business and some about life.
Makes a lot of sense. We'll dive into that later as to why. What about where are we eating? And I'm curious if 12-year-old Amanda and Amanda today, notice I'm not giving your age because I would give my age, but is it the same place? Where are we eating on our car ride home?
Okay, 12-year-old would be McDonald's. Late, the game finishes late. Only thing that's open, like totally getting some chicken nuggets and French fries. And still today, I want that meal. But on the car ride home, maybe like a Cava, like a kind of a faster place, Cava, Chipotle. Like I'm just thinking something quick, because usually when I'm in the car ride home, like I would rather get home. But if it's with you, I want like a nice steak dinner and some good wine.
Done.
So the answer with you on the car ride home changes. Yeah.
Our car ride home is going straight to the steakhouse with wine. Growing up, can you remember, what is your most memorable car ride home? When I tell you that word, does something come to mind of a memorable, whether positive or negative, on a car ride home?
I really don't ever remember any negative ones. I was pretty lucky with my parents. When I think of the car ride home, I think of just like late nights and being absolutely exhausted, whether it's like on the car ride home from lessons, even like a late lesson, because we had to travel like 45 minutes, 60 minutes. And we lived, far away, or like north of Houston. So oftentimes, even for games, in lessons, we'd have to travel pretty far. So the most memorable ones, that's like what comes to mind first, is just when I was just so tired and I would sleep the whole time. Like that's what pops into my head. And doing homework, I think too, usually.
Always. I think I did my entire school career in the car.
Yes.
And it doesn't change when you go to college. You're either on the bus or plane.
Yes.
The whole reason why we wanted to do, when I think of the car ride home, I think it's just kind of a pivotal moment for kids, right? You're with your parents. Sometimes your parent is the coach, and it can be a really just impactful time. And I know you're somebody that works with a lot of youth players and really helping the parents too on coping. So pretend I'm the parent of a 12-year-old pitcher. I go to her pitching lessons, I catch her at home, and we just finished up a tournament where she didn't do so well and didn't really execute on some of those things. What would your advice be to me as a parent now that I have this moment? We got a 2 hour ride home. What would your advice be to me as a parent in that situation?
Do not say anything right away, is my initial like gut instinct. But I also think it starts like your way of interacting and communicating with your players started way before that day. Like, what does she want you to say? What in the past years of you being with her at practice and post games and listening to her, how does she want you to interact with her? Have you been paying attention? Like, have you been just fighting her and doing what you want to do versus what you understand that she wants you to do? So a lot of it would just be really person to person, and like actually from the minute that they start playing, really tuning in to them, to that girl, that player, and figuring out, do they like to talk about, because I think it's easy to go the Sue Inquist route, Jami, and say like the only thing that you should ask is McDonald's or Taco Bell, right? Like that's like her famous quote in line. And if I were to err on one way or the other, I would definitely err on the Sue Inquist, McDonald's or Taco Bell. But at the end of the day, like every single girl is different. And so when I think about even myself, I love talking about the game. Like I love talking about the moments in the game, but that's how my mind works. Like I'm analytical. I like calling the games now. Like I like watching the Astros with my dad talking about the game. Like I wanted to learn and think about moments that were in the game that could have been better or different. And so maybe that's kind of where it all started, is talking about the game itself, James, instead of my individual performance. Like we would eventually get there. But I think talking about our team and the game and the feel and the moments were things that taught me about the game. And then we got into my individual performance, because it's not just about me. It's not one person, right? So that's where my head goes with it, and just understanding what your daughter wants to talk about and what would get through to her the best.
And that's what, even you probably learn that in all the time you spend in the car going to things, right? And that's like, I know I'm saying the car ride home, but even that car ride to the games, that car ride to lessons, that car ride
Mhm.
to practice, like I just think there's so many things even going to there that you could probably learn about your daughter as well in the car.
Yeah, and sometimes it just gets to be too much and you just don't want to talk about it. And your daughter, your player should just have the right, or feel like she can say, can we just talk about it in the morning, or can we just talk about it tomorrow? And then it's like, yes, let's turn up the music, and I don't know, do whatever else in the car. If she puts on her headphones, something, but like, it's never a one-way conversation. That's what I'm so big about teaching with pitching, and just softball youth in general. It's never a one-way conversation. The minute that you start opening up your lines of communication about goals and vision and wants and needs, that's really the thing that's going to make the biggest difference, by asking questions, instead of just saying, this is how it's going to be, this is what we're going to do because I'm the parent, you're the child, like this is what's going to happen. Like that just is not what should happen.
It's never a one-way conversation. I love that too, of talking at somebody versus a
Mm-hmm.
conversation, right? And talking with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about, I know your parents, and I'm just thinking too of like the different personalities of your mom and your dad. But what did you, if you
Mm-hmm.
really look back in just of shaping who you are, how were those moments of going to tournaments and traveling with your parents? And how do you think that shaped who you are now?
Oh, it completely made me who I am, because I'm like a mix of both my parents, even though I still like don't want to be anything like my mom. And like, I didn't want to listen to her about anything with pitching, even though she was like at more of my lessons than my dad, even though my dad was there a lot, but my mom was always there. I just am like this mix of both of them, to look at the game, to like be fiery like my mom when I need to be, but also like patient and laid back like my dad when I need to be. So, I just think about both of their different personalities. And honestly, like I just in general got along with my dad better, I would say. But like now I'm so appreciative of those moments with my mom, despite like being really annoyed by her in the middle of it. I knew that she always came from a good place. And even if I would get all wound up and like just frustrated about stuff, we would always find a way to communicate and just talk about how she wanted the best for me and and then it was all better.
I could see that with Sally, and I know she's coming from the best place ever.
Yeah, never from a bad place ever, but there was something about it, James, that was like I did not want to hear my mom giving me pitching corrections. And I'm sure so many people relate to this. Like, and I hit too, right? So same thing with hitting. Like, I didn't want to hear what my mom had to say. Like, even if it was the exact right thing and I knew it in the back of my mind, I just didn't want to hear it from her. And so I don't know. My parents learned to like work with that when I was practicing and work with that like in the car ride home. All these moments that we're going to be talking about the game and me, they learned, I think, how to manage that the best with how I was.
That's such a good point. My dad could definitely tell me, and it could be the same exact thing, but I would
Yeah,
hear it better from my dad. Mom, nope, you weren't there. Like, you can't talk to me about hitting. You can talk to me about other stuff. But it's so funny how we like, literally, they were saying the same exact thing, but I was not hearing it from mom.
And my dad too, he was a coach. My mom was just always in the, in the stands for games. But from like, I don't know, when I started playing like eight through high school, he was a coach on the field, whether it was like in rec ball when I first started out or all stars and then in travel ball. The only time he, didn't coach me was like in high school games. So once we got to college, it was like, we were not having him there in the field calling me pitches.
I think our dads loved it of not having to coach us or in college. They could just be in their own little dad section and like probably were coaching in their group. It's like
and what's funny about that, Jami, too, it's like our dads weren't even like in their own group, like, like drinking, having fun in the stands because our dads didn't do that. Like they were literally just together watching the game. And it's funny, isn't it? How like there's just different personalities and parents on the teams. And our dads had that really like unique, just genuine like love of the game. Like the good time was watching what was going on in the field and having those memories together.
I think it's the best. Like that's one of my favorite things. I think back to our college career is, and our moms had their own section too, right? Like the moms are all together, probably super stressed out. And then at least our class are like super calm, chill dads with a mix of Darren. We're like over there just having like their dad hang out. I don't actually know if they cared more about us or like them getting together to watch us. It's a tough question.
Yeah, the dad's area. Yeah.
You mentioned it, and I'm like on this mission to remind people that Amanda Scarborough was a phenomenal hitter. And I know you started pitching Angels and you do a phenomenal job with pitchers, but you're one of the best hitters I've ever played with. And so I'm on this mission. I'm going to tell people that. Pitchers who hit, I think because we don't see it as much anymore. And I think it's really difficult as well. And I wasn't a pitcher, so I don't know. But give me some of the top all-time pitchers who hit in softball.
Okay, got to be Lisa Fernandez comes to mind. Michelle Smith, like the ones who go way back. Lauren Hager at Florida, 100% comes to mind as one of the. She's so strong and good at both of them. Rachel Garcia too. Megan Gibson, our other teammate at A&M. Those are, and Danielle Laurie was a good pitcher hitter as well. Amanda Freed, who played at UCLA, like there's quite a few, and a lot of Olympians too, actually, because that's such a coveted position, especially like on an Olympic roster or national team roster. There's only a certain amount of roster spots, right? So it's like you want players who are can do a lot of different things, and so a pitcher hitter is like, I call it a unicorn, but a unicorn is really like, I don't know, like one of a kind, and there's like more than that, but still I call it a unicorn.
So I think you just called yourself a unicorn.
Yeah, pretty much.
There you go. Own it. Just own it. You are a unicorn, Amanda. What about who's leading the way today? Who are the unicorns today that in the game that really stand out to you? I have one that easily comes to mind.
Who?
Kegel. Right?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm really bad at this recall, and you know this about me too. It's like if you ask a favorite movie or like favorite cereal or something, I just like forget everything. So, so I'm glad that you said that because I love her. And my brain just doesn't work that way. But yes, she's 100%. She's the best one right now. And I will say, even like at the college level, I talked to a lot of coaches who want more pitchers to hit, but they run out of time. There's so much preparation now, especially when it comes to getting your pitchers prepared and watching film and just being together, like working on their pitches or throwing live, whatever. But like hitting kind of goes by the wayside, or they don't have enough time to hit. So the amount of hours that teams in college can practice has stayed the same, but the amount of hours that it takes to prepare for a team and a conference opponent for 3-game series or like that has gone up so much more data and numbers to look at and film to watch that's available. So it's like, it's been hard to have more pitchers who hit stick around.
That's such a good, I didn't think about that part of it, of just like, you have to do a lot now in regards to preparation and video because the other teams have that data on you as well. I was actually going to ask you more too of just the struggles. Like, how did you do it? How do you go from, because when you're a pitcher, especially at a high level, actually any pitcher, right? Like you are focused every single pitch. And then you go into the dugout and you got to now go focus on hitting, and then you got to throw that away, and then you got to go back out to the mound. Like, how'd you do that? How do you compartmentalize those two things?
Man, so hard. It really was so hard, but I think it made me who I am now to compartmentalize like other parts of my life. But I mean, you're never perfect at it. There's some days that are better than others, but I like just tried to look at the positive side of it, like when I was pitching, was hitting, I was doing well at the plate. I just try to use that to fuel me in the circle and vice versa. So it was more of a rare day when both were off, right? That both of them were just completely not working that day. I mean, of course that happened for sure, but that's what I loved about it. It was like, if I wasn't pitching great, then I could hit and let that energy, that positivity from hitting and having good at bats and fuel my pitching and vice versa. So I tried to look at it that way. And also too, just like give energy to my teammates versus just thinking about myself. I think that was big too, like cheering harder for my teammates instead of being so wrapped up in my mind about a pitch and at bat, a home run that I gave up. And then I think that's always just good advice in general for anybody, even more than just pitcher hitters.
It's a good point. And I think it's nice for younger players too, who don't have to worry about all that. I know we're talking about data and things that they're going to get at the college level, but it might be a nice little release when I'm thinking of these youth players that they get to do both sides, and it might even make them better, right? That they get to do both and understand each other.
Yeah, I just don't like, at age 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, I don't like it when I get so many messages and emails about parents saying that their coach isn't letting my daughter hit or said that she's never going to be a hitter. Like, I just don't like that. Like, that makes me so mad because it's like, who is this one coach, this one person who may have been around the game for 20 years or maybe been around the game for a minute, but who are you to say that somebody can't do something at such a young age? So I would just continue to do it. Like, I took hitting lessons and pitching lessons. At one point, Jami, I couldn't throw, so I was taking throwing lessons with the baseball pitching coach because I had the yips at third base. So like, just investing in both and finding time for both if you can. If you feel good about the time and preparation that you're putting into both, then keep doing it and find a spot that will let you do both.
Man, you're leading me into, I have a couple follow-ups on that I like want to really dive into. But one, when letting somebody else define you, right? That, hey, you're a PO, you're a pitcher only at 10. Or my biggest complaint that I'm bringing it up again too, right? Is this, you're a pool pitcher or you're a bracket pitcher. Like, I know we could go on, but give, like, what in your mind, like, why is that not a good thing? Like, why should we stop defining young pitchers as pool pitchers only?
To say pool pitcher and bracket pitcher, you're instantly putting these labels on a pitcher that like, you're not good enough to pitch in a bracket game, or you're too good to pitch in a pool game. And I remember I was talking to Karen Wickley about this, the head coach at Tennessee. And like, back when like we played and Monica Abbott was a pitcher, there was no showcase pitchers. Like, there's no showcase tournaments. Like, you played to win. And so it's like, the youth level should be spreading out all this time to give all these pitchers opportunities to pitch in every situation, to start, to come in relief, to close, to pitch in pool games, to pitch in bracket games. And I mean, we've talked about this. Like, I feel like there should be a pitch limit, not even just to take care of a pitcher's arm, but to take care of a staff to develop them, to like actually put energy and effort and strategy as a coach to develop your entire pitching staff, because that's what's happening at the college level. So why not also have that happening at the youth level? But yeah, I don't like those labels at all. The pool pitcher and bracket pitcher, your entire staff is important. They should think at any moment that they're going to go into the game, whether it's a pool game or a bracket game, and just be ready to contribute to their team. Like find a spot for them. If they have a great changeup, let them go into the bracket game and pitch to one hitter and use their changeup. Like there's so many opportunities when you think outside of these stupid little labels, Gene. You're getting me so fired up. These stupid labels that just make somebody feel so boxed in, especially at a young age. I hate that. There's not a lot of things I hate, but I do hate that.
I'm with you. And I know you and I talk a lot about this. I obviously work in the youth game, and I have a niece that's going through it right now. And I think it's a culture thing, right? And also, Amanda, do you remember any 10U games or tournaments that you won?
No.
Do you remember any 14U tournaments that you won?
No.
Me neither, right? I do remember playing in the Women's College World Series. I do remember winning a Big 12, but I could not tell you what my record was in 12 and under, or 16 and under, or 18 and under. I would love to get more of a focus on development versus winning and losing. And to me, like, so that's kind of what you're saying, right? Is it's okay to have a pitching staff and to give innings to different pitchers. And it's also okay for them to fail every now and then. That's okay. At the
yeah.
level.
Yeah, failing's definitely going to happen, but helping your pitchers learn from those moments, not just that they gave up runs, not just that they lost the game, but it was like, what was the moment? What was the pitch? What was going through a pitcher's mind in those moments where maybe she didn't throw her best pitch? Like those are the things that we can work on. Like everybody's going to win and lose. There's going to be games you win. There's going to be games you lose. Every pitcher is going to give up home runs and walk people, but it's like, what can we work on the process of that, of like the process of having a better mindset or sticking with the routine, or like reflecting back, visualizing a pitch. Like those things are things we can control. And all we're trying to do, Jami, too, and I think that people forget about this, we're just trying to help our pitchers and players in general have the best chance for success. That's it. We're not, wins are great and low ERAs and strikeouts are great, but all we're trying to do is put our young players in the best position to have success. So whatever that looks like, that's what we need to do for them.
I love that. I love them, and let them enjoy it. Like their success is really what matters at the end of the day. I love it.
Yeah. Then they won't feel as much pressure. Like if you as a coach are so wrapped up in the wins and losses, then they're going to feel that too. And they're going to feel like the weight of the world is on their shoulders up at the plate or in the circle too, or when a ground ball is coming their way.
I was watching the live stream of my 10-year-old niece's game, and she struggled pitching, right? And so I'm texting with my sister and asking her, how is Caden handling it? And there were some tears. She was upset. And so then after the game, I checked in, and my sister's like, oh, that kid's already over it. She's on the playground with her friends and like gone, done, forgotten. I was like, I love that. I love that. Just like,
yes, I love that too. Oh, that's so like heartwarming.
It was kind of humbling too. And just a reminder of like, she's 10. It's okay.
Yeah, totally. I love that. And I just think coaches should just like be better for their teams in general. Like, so there's going to be some coach who's like already a great coach and doing this. They're like, oh, I'm the one that needs to be better. But in general, like, because that's how it always works. But I just wish coaches would understand like how to look at their staff, how to use them, how to communicate to them, and how to like use their strengths that they have now. Like what strengths do they have, identify them, and be able to use them to complete your staff. And yes, in return, win games, but develop them.
If I'm a coach, Amanda, at a youth level, whatever age group, and maybe I don't get to see my pitchers all the time, like throw live or at their pitching lessons, how do I find out their strengths? So saying like use them for all their strengths, how could I figure that out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think being able to watch them, like at least like at practice, you have to be able to watch your pitchers pitch. I think finding out what a pitcher likes to throw is a great question. What's your favorite pitch? What's your best pitch? Knowing those two things in itself, because some of them are going to be the same answer, And some might be a different answer, because those are the pitches that you want to throw when you're behind in the count. Those are the pitches that you want your pitcher to throw to get ahead in the count. So I think just by communicating and just being able to go in the bullpen and see which pitch is the most accurate, which pitch, like just look at the spin, which pitch has the best spin. And yeah, I think those are probably the biggest ways.
I like that. Asking her too. I want to go back. You were talking about labeling, and I think of the word identity, right? And sometimes it's a big word that's used. In fact, we were just in a group text with some of our former teammates, and I was sharing that I had some 18-year-old players that were talking about players are forgetting, or maybe not forgetting, not knowing who they are off the field. And I think we see that a lot. We even had some of our former teammates saying they struggled with their identity when they left the game of softball. We get so wrapped up in just being a softball player that maybe we forget who we are off the field. And I think that's real, especially like as you get older through college and the pro league. But I'm just curious, did you ever struggle when you were done playing? Did you ever struggle with finding your identity of who you were off the softball field?
I wish I did, so that I could relate to people who have been going through this, but I really didn't. Like I hear them and understand what they're going through, but I really didn't feel that, especially because, my senior year at A&M got injured, and it was just like all of a sudden, boom, my career was over like in a day. And there's other people, that it's coming and still struggle with that identity feel, or like what is next. So yeah, I didn't ever feel like I struggled with that part.
And I know you and I talked about this. I'm kind of the same way. And I think part of it is because I like slowly weaned myself off, or I was always really interested in school. I was a huge nerd, and you were right there with me in the
Yeah,
classroom too.
exactly.
So that's what I was thinking as well, of like, how can we help these players that, because nowadays, right, they're playing year round, they're going to training, they're, going to practice, they have coaches, private coaching. Like, what could you tell a player to help her understand that softball is only a part of who she is? It's not her full identity.
I think just continuing to have that conversation over and over again at a young age. And like being able not just to hear it on a podcast that somebody else is talking about it, but being able to put your daughter around other people who are going to continue to say it and work with your daughter on it. What does that mean? What does that look like? What answers or what questions can we answer to get down to find other passions? Because it's not even about like doing things, right? Like we played other sports. I think it's just about finding something that lights you up. So, and being able to relate, like the way that I felt about softball and the passion that I had for it of wanting to be great at it is like the same way that I feel about a lot of different parts of my life. So it's like, how do we teach that passion and that drive and resilience and all the great things that sport can teach us? But then how do we make the players see, yeah, it's the same thing. It's just find like whatever the new thing is, you could just feel the same type of emotions and passion and strength. So, I don't know. Like, I think that that's a big part, and never feeling like you have to do something. Like my parents, like always like gave us, I don't have any siblings. It's like just me. I don't know why I said that. Maybe us as a family, us as a family, like gave us breaks. Like go on a little vacation. We didn't have a lot of money, but like driving up to Oklahoma or New Braunfels or something, like a day trip or a couple days trip that's just out of softball and away from it. And that's when you find like, oh, I like to travel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like to be in the water. Like I know that it sounds silly, but I think understanding that you have a passion for other things that can get you excited and getting you up every day is what you need to find once softball is done. Like what's that next thing for you that gets you as excited as softball did?
Well, it's so like, it really, I think, says a lot about you and I. And that's why we're still friends and we still talk every day almost, because there's things inside of us that made us successful as athletes that we've channeled and use today in business or anything. Like I am, as you know, highly competitive. Like when I was young, I was fiery. I didn't know how to control it. Now I've gotten older and kind of figured out how to control it, but it's more about taking those things, channeling towards other passions and finding that outlet. Like I know for me, it's like working out or it's business. And I think for you too, right? Like it's taking some of those things that made you successful and channeling it into your professional career now. What comes to mind when you think of like you as an athlete and what you used and learned then that you now use in your everyday life and in business?
Just to go all in with something. Like, I hate feeling like I didn't do enough, like I could have done more. Like, I just love going all in on something and just like proving it to myself that I could do it. And I love learning new things too. So it's like I always just want to learn new things and then see how I can like execute that new thing myself. So that's kind of what keeps me like driven and moving forward too. And being, like internally competitive with myself, whether it's like running on the treadmill or all these little things. That's where I find like it pays off. But I think growth, Jami, it's such a big value in me. Like, I never want to stop growing. I was like that as a player. I never want to just stay exactly the same because then I felt like I was falling behind. So it's just like, I just want to continue to grow in every aspect of my life and never just settle for where I am today.
It's so good. It's so good. It's so true. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's you. I can relate to that as well. Again, I think it's why we're friends. And
But I'm a lot different too than when I play. When I played, and I mean, it goes back to being a pitcher hitter. Like when you really think about it, like I was more high strung and worried and felt stressed. And like looking back, I didn't like who I was. Like I really didn't like that person. And when I got hurt and just could talk about moving on, like your identity part and wasn't able to play, like I just felt like this burden off of my shoulders. It's not like I didn't want to be out there because I did, but I just felt like this release of like, oh, I can breathe now. And like I think players get burnt out, totally normal thing. I think that there were times that I got burnt out, totally normal thing. That doesn't mean to stop doing it. That means to take a break. That means that like to take a pause. Getting burnt out, I think so many people feel like that is just a cue, like that they're looking for their way out. They're looking for, oh, this is what I was supposed to feel to tell me, oh, I'm done. This is it. But like that's not always the case. I think sometimes just by taking a break, giving it a beat, then kind of deciding after a few days or a week about a big decision. Like, do you want to keep going on? Do you want to do something else? I think that's a big part of it. And you talk about identity. Like I was able to listen to my heart. What do I want to do next? Like I was able to think for myself about like what I liked, what I wanted to put my energy and effort into, because my parents let me think for myself instead of just always telling me what to do, where to be, all those things. So I think that's a really important part of it. I do.
That's so important. I feel the passion in there too. I think it's a really good lesson for kids. I was not going to share the story, but you just brought it up, and I think back. Okay, first off, nobody talks about how hard freshman year fall is. It is so hard. You're 18, first time away from home, like you're figuring it out. And by the way, you got practice and you got class, you got all this stuff. I will never forget your first week on campus. Like in the matter of a week, your phone broke, your laptop broke, you Jami got your bike stolen.
Our other roommate borrowed my bike literally first day. She like didn't lock it up, stolen. I'm like crying.
You really you came through though. You got stronger in college. I watched it.
I just learned that it's like not the end of the world. Like I feel so much better like when things don't go exactly in my mind. And maybe it was my injury that really helped that. But when things just don't go exactly in my mind how it's supposed to go, a game, a practice, like a career, like a year in terms of like college softball, like it's just okay. Like if you don't get the exact 2 hours of practice in and it's like 90 minutes because you were doing something else, like it's okay. You'll still figure it out. Like I was so like regimented and rigid, and I just like myself a lot better without being that type of person. So do my friends.
I saw the transition. I think we were good for each other because I was like completely the opposite way. So you brought some structure to me. I don't think people fully understand, Amanda, like your injury and then what you did as a person. And I think that story needs to be told more. So I'm painting the picture, but I'll never forget. I mean, we are top 5 in the country, top 10 in the country. You're on your way to not only an All-American career, but potentially a Player of the Year candidate that year as well. And I have chills thinking about it. Like, you go for a drag bunt, something happens. we don't even process that. Like, oh, okay, Amanda's hurt. Like, she'll be out for a couple games. And I'm sitting in the parking lot with Jamie Henshaw, and you call us, and you're like, you're done. And like, I don't even think I process like, wait. Like, we're trying to win a national championship here. Like, our best pitcher, our 3-hole hitter, she's done. Like, wait, you're Amanda. You're not gonna play, but you immediately embraced. Like, you didn't give up on us. You know, like, you came to practice every day. You traveled to every game, and you didn't just sit and sulk in the dugout. You actually like took on a coaching role. I don't like, do you think you realized at 20, you're probably 21, 22 years old at that time? Like, did you realize really? Or it was just like, this is what I do. Like, I'm going to be a good teammate.
So like selfishly, I think I did that to like survive. And then by just like just like figuring out the first week about how to survive, then it just became a habit that felt good. And so that was helping the team, and it was helping me and like helping everybody. So it's like it first started off, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest, is like something that I could do to like get my own mind off of it. But then like by doing that, almost like fake it till you make it, that to me is a real thing. By the way, I think some people think fake it till you make it is not real. I was like faking it, but then I'm like, wait, this is having like a lot of good repercussions here. Like the team needs it. Like my coach is like saying positive things about me. Like I'm helping my teammates. Like I'm keeping my mind off of being sad that I can't play. Like there are a lot of like positive things about it. So then I'm like, well, I'm just after the first week, I'm like, oh, that's great. This is my new role. Like I faked it until I made it, honestly. And then it just became my role, like what I was doing. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. I get it. And I also like, I would do the same. I respect it. I think that's real. I've never asked you this, but we had a lot of success that year, right? We, even after your injury, we go on, I think what, like 22 game win streak. We're undefeated through the Big 12, except one loss to Oklahoma State. We cruise through regionals, cruise through super regionals. We make it all the way to the national championship game. I know you were completely involved, right? As now as like a coaching role, but was it ever hard? Did you ever like think to yourself, like, man, I want to be in the lineup, or like, we could have done this? Did you ever go through that?
You know, I would really be honest with you if I did. And I really don't remember feeling that way. Like I had so much fun that year, like with our team, with you. I say you guys, the people who were playing every day. Like I felt as much a part of that. I truly did as when I was playing junior and sophomore and freshman year. Like it truly all felt maybe even better. Like I said, there's no pressure. Like you just get to show up and like you're on this winning team. Like it's great. Like new role. Like I showed up to the game. I'm like, oh, it's a nice day out, huh? Like I'm not worried about the pitcher. Like there's no worries. I just got to show up and be on a great team and like contribute like nothing but positive ways. Like wasn't going to go 0 for 3. I wasn't going to give up a home run. Like it was kind of nice, you know? Of course I wanted to be out there for sure, but like it was really like I had just a blast.
It was also pretty fun. Here, this is like, I think this is real life too, of battling, competing in a healthy way with a teammate. So Amanda Scarborough and Megan Gibson, two of the top recruits in our class, they both come to A&M. They're both pitchers. They're both hitters. They're hitting 3-4 in the lineup. They're, first base, pitching, but you're friends. And obviously, like, there's competitive moments, and sometimes maybe somebody got the ball more than the other. Like, how did you manage that? How do two people that are playing the same position, maybe competing for innings, like, how do you still keep a healthy relationship with a teammate?
Yeah, I think like honestly, just by focusing on myself, like I really don't remember comparing myself a lot to Megan. Like I don't remember like seeing her in the bullpen. She like threw a pitch. And I'm like, oh, I got to do one better. Like I was just so focused like on my own task at hand, and there's so much going on that it's like I didn't even feel like I had time to worry about her most times. My whole career, I really didn't even feel that way. Like I was so just like, how can I get better today? What can I do better? Like focusing more on myself, like in my own preparation. I didn't even really think about what she was doing, like as my teammate, of course, but not like as my competition on the team. That's just my own mindset though.
No, and I can vouch for it. I know that's exactly
Yeah,
who you are.
because people are like, yeah, right. Like you're not, I don't know. I can get like tunnel vision just about what I want to do in front of me. So I'm not worried about what other people are doing.
Well, I'm gonna switch and talk about Amanda. I hear you say all the time, like when people ask you what you do, I think you say I work in softball. Is that correct?
Yeah, anything that deals with softball. Like I'm
Anything that
probably involved somehow. Yeah.
give me the kind of the origin story, and because what you started with pitching angels, and you're helping pitchers, you're helping coaches, you're helping parents. Not that that is necessarily different, but how you do it, I think, is different than what other people have done in softball. Can you explain, like, how did you figure that out? How did you come up with pitching angels, the business itself, and launch that?
Yeah, so that actually didn't happen until 2019. I mean, from like the year that I could, Facebook was around. Like, I remember I made a Facebook page, and a lot of people follow my Facebook page now. But in 2010, maybe 2009, I made my first business Facebook page that I would just like post about like where my clinics were going to be, and then that turned into like, I'm going to post this video or picture, blogs. Actually, that's where it started. Blogs. I would write blogs about my experience. And to me, it was like, honestly, like therapeutic, like just to put all my thoughts on paper and help others. And that was really the fuel to that, is that people responded to those blogs and me that are still up on my website today, that have gotten literally hundreds of thousands, some millions of views. And people still will read them. It's crazy. But I love the feeling of helping people. So by starting something online, that was like it wasn't called Pitching Angel. There's no name for it. It's just my name. And then I started to do clinics like in person and lessons. And I don't know, in 2019, I wanted something that was separate from my name. So my mom would always tell me when I was pitching, you're never alone. Your angels are always with you. And so again, I'm like rolling my eyes when she said that when I was younger. Cause I'm like, yeah, right, mom, whatever. But like that always really did like make me feel really good, to make me feel like I'm not alone. And so by creating Pitching Angel, I wanted other people, other pitchers and parents, honestly, to feel like they're not alone, because there can be this sense and feeling of like desperation, and like what you're going through is what nobody else has ever been through, with an injury or a bad slump that you're going through. And so like any content that I put out now and that I've created is more under the Pitching Angel like brand. And yeah, because I want to create something separate. And then I created online courses and have entire like training, I don't know what the best word, like package, or I don't know what the like suite. I
Programs?
think that's probably programs. Yeah. Just like I have a coach training and foundation and accuracy and velocity, just to be able to reach as many pitchers as I possibly can, to help people who live in rural America or in Austria or Australia. Like there's people from all over the world who are able to learn from that now, and just help them in their pitching journey. Like that's my biggest goal.
I think it's, and I obviously follow and know kind of what you're doing behind the scenes, but I think it's interesting because there wasn't a blueprint for it, right? Like you kind of had to go and navigate. You had to look outside of softball and see what other people in like the online coaching world and things were doing. And then you brought that back into softball, which I think you could do on many things. What would be your advice to, if I'm a former player, I have, maybe I'm a slapper, maybe I can teach something specific. How would I go about that? Like what would be your advice to somebody that's looking to start a business out of coaching or like online coaching?
Answer the most asked question that you get, whether it's from fans or parents or whoever. Like there's going to be some kind of question that you're going to get asked all the time. Answer that question for people. And so I think and then also like looking at yourself, what makes you a unique player? And I think by answering those two questions, you're going to come up with some really great content that you're going to be passionate about. It goes back to that passion, right? Like I loved hitting. I was a hitter, but I literally have no motivation to go and do a course on hitting, because I'm so passionate about pitching. And the impact that it made on my own personal life, that I want others to experience that too. So I think those are the two biggest questions to ask, and then I could help more from there. But if you can't answer that question, then it's hard to like do the others.
I love that. I love that.
And I can tell you what mine are. The most asked question that I get is, how can my daughter throw harder? By far, that is it. And then number two, my slow motion video that's on YouTube, that was probably the best thing I ever made back in, I think, 2012, maybe, is like the most watched slow motion pitching video. And so then people understood that I was only 5'5" and threw 70 miles an hour. And so I didn't ever think anything about that, Jami. When we were playing together in high school, like I never thought about my height ever, not once. Then that video comes out and it goes viral. It still is online today. And people know that I'm smaller and could throw hard. And they want their smaller athlete. They just want to throw hard, period. So they work hand in hand, right? How do I get my daughter to throw harder? And then they see my video and like, oh, you're only 5'5", you threw hard. And so it goes back to like mechanics and foundation. And that's like my number one thing I teach for pitchers is like build your foundation first, like that, and continue to go back to it and put energy and effort into it.
It makes sense to me on the 5'5" because there's more people, or at least at some point in their age, right, that are it's relatable. And that's what like, yeah. Okay, if she can do it, I can do it as well. On the most asked questions, like where should I be asking those questions?
What's funny is like, I mean, you can definitely ask on social media to like any kind of following that you have, of like, hey, like literally Q&A, like what questions do you have for me? There's going to be certain ones that start to pop up over and over again. But honestly too, like if you're a former player, like there has to be just things that people who are writing articles on you or family members ask you or friends ask you, or like even asking your friends who played with you, like what sticks out to you about my game? Like what, if you had any question, I don't know, about my game or like any questions for me in general, like what would be your most asked questions? And I think just by polling that, but social media is a great spot, but it helps to have a following.
You just made me come random question for you, but thinking of your role on ESPN, and you're around a lot of current athletes now, and you said they get asked questions. Is there a difference between an athlete who interviews well and an athlete who doesn't interview well? And if so, like what makes a good interview for an athlete?
I just want somebody to slow down. Like too many times, like, and I get it, I would be nervous too, but like they're just trying to like coach talk and like think of what their coach told them pregame or postgame and like regurgitate that exact sentence. Like we're just trying to do it for the like whatever, literally that we hear so many just coach talk through the players, and that is fine. But like I always like just hearing genuine answers, like thinking outside your coach, thinking like about the question that was asked, and literally just being able to reflect on yourself in that moment that we're asking about or whatever it is, and just give a real answer. Like I think that those are just the best that are out there, like just real detailed like answers and insight to your life.
Is there anybody that comes to mind in the past few years who you thought interviewed really well?
So Erin Miller did. I remember when she was at Oklahoma, and that's why I passed her name on to my ESPN bosses. She's the first one that comes to mind. And Valerie Cagle, actually, because we were just talking about her, she does well in her interviews too. I really like talking to her, and like she had like a feature done on her that was really well too.
You actually hit on one of my others. Of Erin Miller is somebody that, hey, now she's in the booth as well and doing a great job and growing. There's so many more opportunities now to be a softball analyst. And I know you've been somebody that constantly helps others, that you reach out and try to help them get their career started, which is important. But why is that? Why does that matter for you? Because essentially these people could be taking your job, right? So, but you still help them. Why is that? Why do you?
Because I just like for our sport to sound better. I like for our sport to sound elevated. I like for our sport to sound professional. Like I'm passionate about a lot of things within our sport. Obviously you're pulling it all out of me, but like, I just like to turn on a game and like people, it just sounds good. Like I want to be the level of like watching Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Baseball, that it just sounds so big and so good. And so it's like, I just want to help other analysts learn just even the basics, because nobody really taught me, and I figured out a lot of it on my own. And so if I can teach other people what to do, then I know that it will help them a lot and give them a head start and help our sport.
If you're an aspiring analyst, reach out, Amanda Scarborough. I know for a fact she will help you.
A lot of people reach out to me, and I feel like this year more than ever, because I think, even more and more games are on.
The opportunities are growing, right? And we see the the production of the SEC tournament, and I know like there's more conference tournaments, but I just watched that one, what goes on, and then
It's the biggest
regional,
one. Yeah.
the Women's College World Series, and where we're at. Like, can you explain the prep work that goes in from your seat, like, and even just the people around you to make that a show, to make it a production that we all get to enjoy? Like, what's that like?
Ugh. It's so crazy because like if you are somebody listening to this and you just like to watch games, you have no idea what goes on just even to put the game on air. Nevertheless, like all the prep that goes into it leading up. So before any series, so like for example, this weekend, I don't know when you're going to release this, but this upcoming weekend, I have Oklahoma State at Texas. So we'll talk to Kenny Gajewski, the Oklahoma State head coach, and Mike White, the Texas head coach. We'll talk to them anywhere between 30 minutes in an hour. Ask them about their team, like where they're at right now, just maybe even ask them about current state of softball. Like we literally can just ask them anything. So I'll try to find some stories, try to find some good stats, like just try to be able to tell each team's story in a broadcast. So within that story is going to be individual players like Kelly Maxwell or Mac Morgan from Texas. Kelly Maxwell plays for Oklahoma State. But like just tell their story with off the field stuff that they do. Tell their story with stats and strikeout numbers and where they're at currently right now in their season. So by pulling out a few players, I mean just putting time and effort and going and watching film of their old games, emailing my producers things that stick out to me as the analyst of like, hey, this is for sure what I want to talk about. Here are 10 things that I want to hit on. You don't even know for sure that they're all going to get into the game, but because the game kind of dictates where you go. But yeah, we'll have production meetings. I mean, it's a lot of prep work. And Jami, just like the teams have like 643 charts and Synergy, which has the ability to go in and like watch film on teams. This is the first year that we've had that. And teams also have that. So I can go in and look at Kelly Maxwell and see her strikeouts or the majority of her strikeouts, not all, but I can go and do that for any player, not just Kelly Maxwell, but like any Division I softball player can go and take a peek into their world just to prepare to know what I'm going to see entering a series or broadcast.
So you mean you don't just show up to the game and like talk softball? There's a lot of work that goes into this.
I'm looking at the national. I just even talked about our game. I'm looking at the national picture. I'm thinking about what conference Oklahoma State and Texas are in, which they're in the Big 12. So what's Oklahoma doing? What other teams, like what is the feel of the Big 12 right now? Like just in then outside the Big 12, like nationally, just knowing what's going on in the landscape.
Well, I remember last year at the SEC tournament, your birthday is always during conference tournaments. And I'm like just trying to hang out and go back to that steak and wine dinner. And you have like 90 million prep work.
Oh my God.
Do you meet with every single coach and coaching staff?
I'm like scratching my neck right now because the SEC tournament gives me like hives, and the Clearwater tournament too in February, because we do end up talking to all 16 coaches before the Clearwater tournament and then all the coaches before SEC tournament too. So it's a lot.
Yeah. Isn't it cool though? Like from your seat where you started calling games actually like right after we got done playing in 2009, right? And here we are in 2023. And like there's a tournament in February on ESPN. Like, get out of here. Like your game yesterday was on ESPN too, right? Mm-hmm. Like how cool is that?
Yeah. So like I just love seeing the growth of the sport. I love being able to talk to all the coaches. Like I said, like 30 to 60 minutes. Like I get that with Mike White and Kenny Gajewski. People would die to talk to them for that long. And it's like, I like to ask them questions that I want to like jam it. And you know, I'm passionate about this. Like I want it to be like, I want to like talk about Oklahoma State and what Kenny told me and like what makes them unique as a program and like how he coaches and their offensive approach. Like I don't like to cookie cutter it and do like the same game every time. Like I want to learn from Kenny Gajewski about what he's looking for, what data he's looking at. So it only helps me as an analyst, but it also helps me as a softball coach to help young pitchers too.
It's a great point. That actually like goes into your, I didn't even think about that. That actually helps you with pitching angels. And
a ton. What are they paying attention to? Like what post can I just go and whip up on my Facebook page that 140,000, 150,000 people can see that they can learn from? That's my biggest goal, is to be able to help. Like I want to help as many pitching families as possible just learn and feel like they're not alone.
This is so good. I think we could you and I could sit and talk forever, but we do have people that are listening. So I want to, make sure that they're enjoying this too. I know you hate this. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot to come up with some answers. So I'm going to see if I
Okay.
can guide you into them, but I want to
Yeah,
finish with some rapid fire here.
guiding will help. Okay. I'll try to be good at this.
So we'll start with Coach Evans, who we played for, Hall of Fame coach. We learned a ton. What's one of the things that, because Coach was really big on life lessons, right? What's something that you still use to this day or you think about from when she was our coach?
Most of what I say whenever I'm calling a game, just in terms of like knowledge of the game and situational, like I feel like I learned everything from her in our post game talks, but just fiery competitiveness and respecting your opponent. Like I think of her, this redhead, like fiery coach. Like I was competitive, but I was like a next level competitive from learning about how competitive she was. Yeah, and then respecting the game and our opponent, Jami. I mean, we lost some tough games, so just not taking anything for granted going into each game, feeling like we're just as prepared for a mid-major team as we were for Oklahoma when we were playing them in conference.
Respect your opponent. It's like I think I literally do that in business today of like just respecting the other person, their time, their inner, like everything about them. So I reframed that question. I just want you to know and led you into it. That's a good friend right there. Do you remember you're playing travel ball back? Like it could be on your Impact Gold days. It could be on your Storm days. Do you remember like a travel ball player that you played against that was really good?
So I played freshman year in high school against Kat. So I remember just like she pitched at a local like high school. We played her in a high school game because we're both from Houston. So I remember like hitting off of her for the first time. And like Jami, I had never seen anything like it before. Like I knew it was Kat Osterman. She was a senior. I was a freshman. Like I had never hit off of anybody close to what it was like to hit off of her. And so that's definitely a memory, like in a high school game, hitting off of her freshman year.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
And
that
then we
was
played them at Texas, but
sophomore, junior year too, right? Like, or no, I
yeah.
guess freshman, sophomore year of college. Same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. And so facing her as a freshman in high school and she was like an Olympian, I'm like, oh my God, like I've got a lot of growing up to do if this is the type of pitching that we're gonna see in high school ball now moving forward.
Is there anybody now that you know in softball that you're like, man, I wish we could have been teammates? Like she would have been fun to be a teammate with.
Like I can think of a lot of pitchers and like they're all my friends now too. Like I would have loved to have been on the same team as Monica Abbott and just like watched her grow for 4 years and like pitch next to her um and just be her team. Like I would have just want to know what it was like to be on the same pitching staff as her. And then Danielle, yeah, I think of her as a teammate. Yeah, that's pitcher to pitcher, but I would have liked to have like been a first baseman behind Danielle and like Danielle Laurie at Washington, like her mindset and grind and just like drive and intensity. Like I would have loved to have known what it was like to play with her.
Social media, we didn't have it, right? Like Facebook came out when we were in college. What social media platform do you wish we had as a youth player?
Probably Instagram, not Snapchat, not TikTok. Those are so very not me. But probably, yeah. Now I love Facebook. Well, I love my Facebook coaching page. Other than that, I don't really get on my personal page ever and like just hang out on it. But I don't know, like Instagram, and I want it to go back to just the pictures, like the way that it was originally. Like I don't want to do reels. I don't want to do Instagram lives. Like I just love the pictures and like a snapshot of like what a person was doing that day and like a peek into their life. So probably just Instagram, but pictures only.
I thought your answer was going to be none.
Okay, well, if that was an answer, I'm so happy that we didn't play with social media. So that for sure would be, but I was ready for an answer that time. I didn't know the answer was none, and that would have been my answer.
It's my
None of the
job,
above.
Amanda, as your friend, to keep you on your toes.
Love it.
Okay, early season favorite to win freshman of the year.
I really like Nigeri Kennedy, the pitcher at Stanford. She's so good, and she's been injured a little bit. So I hope that doesn't hurt her numbers, but her numbers are unreal. The Georgia head coach, Tony Baldwin, said that was the best pitcher that they had faced. I mean, she's really good. So I am pulling for her because I think she's just electric, but Megan Grant could also be in that conversation. Jordan Woolery from UCLA, both of those players from UCLA, and Olivia DiNardo from Arizona too. She's really good.
So fun
Carlin
fact,
Pickens from Tennessee. Oh, there's so many.
fun fact, those first four, Nyjah, Jordan, Megan Grant, and Olivia played in our Alliance All-Star game last year.
They're studs.
And studs. So good. And DiNardo and Grant were teammates with the Warriors for like their entire childhood. In fact,
That's
they
right.
won our national championship at 16U. I'm like, okay, who are these kids? They are incredible. And they're
I ran into their coach at our hotel in Clearwater. I think it was their coach. And so he was talking to me about them at the time. It's like, yeah, I mean, I've like kind of heard their name. And now it's like, oh, wow, I talked to Olivia DiNardo and Megan Grant's coach like together. Now it's like, I don't know, more like, oh, that's weird how that all came together. But you know, it's so hard as a freshman to perform. Like, let's be honest. Like, I've seen a lot of freshmen like start out really good in February. And then it's like, as March and April come around, like, they're not as good because they just like went off in February and they just weren't able to keep that going. But like the players that we just named are freshmen who are like still performing midway through April and are likely to have a big postseason impact too.
Don't answer this question, but when you finally say yes to me to come call our Alliance All-Star game, it will consider it prep work because the like reigning conference freshman of the year, they play in that game. So just saying, one of these days you're going to tell me yes.
Yeah, I can't wait for that day.
By the way, Jocelyn Erickson, Triple Crown in our national championship last year. Like literally led the other best teams in the country in home runs, RBIs, and hits.
Love that.
So good. Early season, mid-season favorite to win player of the year.
Jada Coleman from Oklahoma. I think Tiare Jennings can even be in that conversation too. For some reason, Tiare is getting overlooked. And I think it's because everybody is like more focused on Jada, but Tiare is quietly keeping up with like similar numbers. I think just Jada has more stolen bases. But who else? Valerie Cagle has to be in that conversation for sure. Skylar Wallace from Florida. She's having a really good year. And I feel like I'm forgetting maybe one or two, but those to me, I think are the top ones. In fact, I need to vote for the top 25 by Wednesday. So we'll see by the time this is released. I bet the top 25 will come out.
That's fun. Give me a scenario in the Women's College World Series this year where Oklahoma doesn't win.
Okay, the scenario is I think that it's really hard to beat them twice. So I don't think that it would, I mean, I guess it could happen in regionals because you could play 2 or 3 different teams, but I don't think it will happen in regionals. I think unless something crazy happens, I don't think it will happen in supers. I think a team can beat them once in supers, but it's going to be really difficult to beat them twice. But at the World Series, you're not playing the same teams. So I think the scenario is that back-to-back teams, one team has to give Oklahoma their first loss and like play a complete game, not make any mistakes. That's a scenario. You cannot make any mistakes against them. And maybe you keep them to like 1 run and you hit a home run. It's a 2-run home run. You win like 2-1. Then another team also has to have that same type of game the following game. So I think it's more likely in the World Series, not just because it's like the better teams make it there. I mean, that of course helps, but I think it's because they have the potential to play different teams and not the same team multiple times.
It's exactly why I asked the question the way I did. But that was my thinking too. Like, I'm sorry, nobody's beating them twice. That is really tough to do. And if they do, props to you. But I just
teams have come close. I will say, I feel like there's been some closer games this year. Like LSU just played them tough. Even Texas Tech played them tough. So I feel like Oklahoma is opening the door a little bit, like a smidge, a tiny little bit, but still in those close games, the other team didn't score any runs because their pitching and defense is so good. So it's like, once you think you've shut down their offense a little bit to like 3 runs instead of 10, then you still have to score against them. And that is a tough thing to do.
So not named Oklahoma, who's a contender? Who's your team?
Yeah. Only one team is hard. UCLA seems to be playing really well right now. Florida State and Oklahoma State. Those would probably be my top 4. I think that you could also put Tennessee in that mix too. What worries me is like Oklahoma State, UCLA, and Florida State have the experience in the postseason. Although Florida State didn't make it there last year, but just in general, like they're usually at the World Series. And Tennessee, it just has been a while since we've seen them there. And that experience factor plays such a big factor in Oklahoma City.
Gosh, we're gonna have to do episode 2, and we'll just dive into like I just want to pick your brain. But
Yeah, I
last
love that.
question, last question, and you do have to pick. But who is the greatest wedding officiant of your wedding of all time?
This is hard. My recall really isn't coming to me right now. Jami Lobpries is the best. Yes.
I was gonna
Love
ask
her.
you who your favorite roommate, but there were a couple other options, and I didn't want to make the others feel bad. I mean, I know the answer, but
You would be a top 4 roommate.
top 4. Okay, I guess Donnie. Like, I'll give.
Okay, Donnie, my husband, is my favorite roommate. And then beyond that, you're definitely in my top 4.
Yes. Okay, I will take that. Well,
I'm just
Amanda,
kidding, Jamie. I love you.
that'll close us out there. Amanda, I appreciate it. I will join you on a car ride home anytime, and I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, it's a fun car ride home. And stay tuned. I have some new big things coming if anybody's listening to this. So stay tuned. Something new's coming.
How do I find you?
On Facebook, Amanda Scarborough Pitching Angel, at Pitching Angel on Instagram, or you can follow me on my personal at Amanda Scarborough. Those are the main ways.
I love it, and I encourage it. Go follow her.